I'd like to talk about the last big sort of controversy or like conflict in between the fans and critics. We've sort of gone into that a little bit, which is just sort of the idea that there's this certain type of person. Like a lot of commentators really catch on to the fact really quickly that bronies are nerds. Essentially, that's the word, right? For anyone who's into things, into something like cartoons, into fictional works. But to me, I've never really been satisfied with a lot of the labels that label people as having certain interests or certain obsessions versus other non-nerds.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, what is the meaningfulness of the concept of what a nerd is, or what's like what a geek is, or what nerd geek culture is? And
you know, if you know about movie Bob Chipman, read the Escapist magazine, he did a big thing in his side quest show about nerds and nerd culture and how it, I think it's called With Great Power Comes Great Responsibility. The nerd culture is taken over. We live in a world where nerds are now the mainstream.
Geek culture, here a term describing the increasingly amorphous mix of fandoms, subcultures, hobbies, etc., has always been known for strong opinions and very specific lines of demarcation. But there was always one thing that united all of it, a shared sense of overriding persecution by, or at least callous dismissal from, the so-called mainstream popular culture. In other words, for the bulk of the period wherein various nerd subcultures had a sense of themselves as a subculture, they tended to define themselves not just as what they were, but what they weren't. To be geek was also to be an iconoclast, willingly separate from and even rebellious against a larger, more powerful, and infrequently threatening mainstream culture. We were outsiders, outcasts, and self-styled rebels. Keyword in that sentence, though, were, because however marginalized and maligned we thought we were for a long run of this whole thing, we sure as hell aren't anymore. Oh, individually we may still be, to be sure, and not every aspect of any culture is going to be widely accepted, but in the big, grand scheme of things right now, geek culture and the vast spectrum of nerd ephemera has largely come to dominate what we used to call the mainstream culture.
Yeah. And once upon a time, you'd open your movie theaters, your movie, and market your movie in some other big Academy type thing. Now it's all at Comic-Con. Everyone's clamoring.
A lot of people comment that nerd culture is becoming mainstream.
And no, it is mainstream. Look at what movies have sold. It's all superhero movies, the Avengers, comic book nerd stuff. Nerds have taken over. What are the jocks doing? They're playing fantasy football. Look, what does that look like?
Video
game.
I
love that comparison.
It's that's.
I mean, what is it? A meaningful concept to say that bronies are nerds? I mean, does it?
It's not.
Yeah, it's not. Right?
Yeah, and we are really in a place where.
What are people trying to say when they say it? Then, like, if people are.
They're just trying to put a distance between themselves and whatever's different, or they're holding on to old concepts where they're not seeing themselves as nerds, even though they clearly are.
You are all weirdos.
Stop pretending like bronies are any weirder than anyone else. We're all weird.
I mean, the most experience that I've had in my adult life with non-nerdy people, because like I said, I hung out with nerds in high school, I hung out with nerds in college, but when I was at work, the other people around me, none of them were really like nerds per se, but almost all the guys I worked with played video games. They were all into Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff like that. They were all gamers. There was one day where we were standing around, we were unboxing a truck, right? Because that's what I did. I was like a moving boxes around a store in a Target. And, you know, I'm with a bunch of dudes, like dudes. You know, there's no two ways about it. They were guys, men's men. And we're all standing around having an extensive conversation about Avatar: The Last Airbender. So there was the one guy who was like a big dude, ex-military, southern accent, but he was definitely a big nerd, like, you know, compared to everyone else, where he was really into video games, really into cartoons, anime, stuff like that, huge, like, Kingdom Hearts fan, that kind of guy, right?
Yep.
I love that I just classify all Kingdom Hearts fans as one type of people, but he
We're
was
all
that
guilty
kind
of
of
it.
guy.
We're all guilty of it.
And then, you know, there's like
it.
this other dude who's like, you know, slang talking, like, you know, a couple like from the hood black guys who are also into Avatar. And then you've got these other, and there was one dude who was, of course, this guy, I always called him like, I would always make fun of him for being kind of like a poser, because he was totally the guy who would get on your case about being into a kids show or being into this and that. He was the guy who I got into an argument with because he thought that anyone who had a PlayStation was not a real man, because you had to have an Xbox to be a real man. And I got into a big argument with him and calling him a hater and stuff.
Oh,
and
Check it out, it's Stream Center!
and long story short, we're all talking about Avatar, and he's just like, "But it's a kids show, yo. That's a kids show." And we're just like, "Dude, but it's awesome." Like, and these are guys like I'm obviously
he's
not
in
that
the minority
masculine,
now. Yeah,
but
he's
we're
in the
talking
minority.
about like these two really huge, manly dudes.
Oh,
who
I
are
know-
sitting there going, "Yo, man, Avatar's my yo," just like
I got
going
my
back and
story.
forth like that.
I got my story. When I was an undergraduate, I worked at a research farm for a while. I mean, it's research farm, but it was farm. It was farm work, and we were like pollinating corn all summer, and it was a summer job. And I immediately realized when I went in there, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to be working with like small town people who are like, they're rural, they're conservative, and yeah, they were. I mean, it was a conservative bunch of people. You could tell they didn't even have a lot of experience with like people of color, because they were asking me all sorts of questions about like where I was from and like awkward. I hadn't faced a situation like that since I was in like kindergarten, and I was like 20 years old, and I was like having to answer all these questions again. But anyway. Though eventually, later on, I find out that these people really like Disney movies.
Right.
They were really into like classic Disney and The Lion King. And there was even a moment where we're all like pollinating corn, and we all belt out The Circle of Life
Oh,
while
man,
we're pollinating
that's classic.
corn.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's
these
exactly
are like
what it's
conservative, like red meat eating.
I mean, the guys I was talking to were more caught up on these shows than I was. They were talking about like the season finale of Legend of Korra, and I'm like, I haven't even caught up with Korra. You guys are bigger nerds than I am,
I wanted this sort of transitions. That story I told sort of transitions into like one of the topics I wanted to raise now, which is like, how are these sort of things enforced? Like social norms, like what's proper for men, what's proper for adults. How are these things enforced? Like, there's actually a concept for how these things are enforced in sociology. It's called gender policing. It's I think that you could say generally it's just like policing of social norms, like how people bully each other, how people interact with each other in a way that sort of is trying to get everyone to get in line.
I do. Do you? I do. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
And not go their own way and force them to conform.
There's a certain part of the culture I just hate, because I grew up in Boston, and in Boston people just beat the out of each other for no reason. They just beat the out of each other. But I kind of think you need that, to keep quality control. Because in places where that doesn't happen, people are just too free.
And one example I wanted to raise while I was working at this farm, I had an experience that I'll always remember, which is I was just standing, just resting, like after doing some shovel work or something, and I had my hand like resting on my hip, and it was resting on my hip like this. My wrist was like this. Like I was just resting my wrist on my hip, and one of the guys in my work group was like, "Yeah, you're doing it wrong. Guys don't hold their wrists like that."
Yep.
He's like, "You're supposed to hold your hand on your hips like this.
Yeah.
This is gay. Like this is effeminate, right?"
One day I was at the dinner table, and I was kind of just joking, and I made this gesture, and my brother said, "Dude, that's really gay." And I was like, "No, it's not." And then my parents were like, "Yeah, it's kind of gay."
And he picked up on this. He saw this, and it bugged him.
Right.
The way I was just standing, just resting my arm, I'm just minding my own damn business, and this guy is bugged by the fact that I'm holding my arm in the wrong way.
Are you a homosexual?
Not cool.
And I'll never forget that. And I was like, I did it. I went along with it. I was like, okay, I don't want trouble. Like, I just want to work and get out of here, but I'm not going to make a social fit about this here. Pick my battles. You guys could probably go into like how you've been pressured from a young age to do certain things, and how you either rebelled or went along with it. So dish about it. Who wants to go? Anyone have anything?
Someone else want to go first, because I can go on about this for a while.
I'd be happy. I'd be happy to. I think from a very early age, and I've mentioned this a couple of times, I was interested in sort of guy stuff, and I was also quite a tomboy. And as a girl, you're really not supposed to be loud. You're not supposed to be aggressive. And this is something I mentioned earlier. You're really not supposed to be funny.
How about a girl who's got a brain, who always speaks her mind?
Nah.
I mean, you're supposed to laugh at guys' jokes. But in reality, I mean, if you think about girls, we don't really we don't really joke.
Right.
And so that's a lot of pressure for you. I remember going to school every day. This was primary school, and thinking, today I'll be quiet. Today I swear people won't. I won't be loud. I won't be joking out loud. I won't be doodling away. I'll just be a girl.
Wow.
To please your future in-laws, you must demonstrate a sense of dignity and refinement. You must also be poised.
Pardon me?
And silent.
And something I found later on, and this is, in a way, this is a bit tragic, is that I can get away with being funny, and I can, well, because I'm so hilarious, and I can get away with being loud, and I can get away with drawing webcomics and being geeky in certain ways, as long as I do pretty. And I don't even, and this is the amazing thing about it, is I don't even have to be pretty. All I have to do, and this is why I grew my hair out. Like, I'm serious. I prefer my hair short. I had as short hair as you guys when I was a kid. But I realized that for one thing, I just outgrew it because hairdressers were expensive. And then I noticed that people were like, oh, your hair is so pretty. And I knew that I, for one, think that short hair suits me better. But people will just think long hair is pretty. So right. As long as I do that, and as long as I pay attention to what I wear and, you know, how I make myself look, then I'm allowed to be as geeky as I want, because
you're playing by some of the rules.
Yeah,
you're playing by some of the rules.
I think as a girl, that's the main pressure. Just be pretty. Of course, there's tons of other pressures, and it's not easy. But if you obey just this one rule, you know, you don't have to physically just do pretty, and you're fine. Then you're in line.
Digi, I know you want to probably talk a little bit, but I actually want to go from that point.
I'm just
which
depressed now.
Well, you know, I mean, that was very, very eye-opening, yeah. And I suspected something like that, though. I mean, because there are pressures on both genders. There are pressures on not just girls, but guys too. And the one you brought up was actually one you may not have thought of as a pressure, Chloe, which is that guys are funny and girls aren't, or that guys joke around and girls aren't. I'm not saying that girls can't be funny.
Hey, you're a wonderful crowd here tonight. Where are y'all from? Wow, that's great. You know, I used to have an ant farm, but I had to get rid of it because I couldn't find tractors that small. Get it? Tractors that small?
Right. But the video I put in the sources, which was Christopher Hitchens, that video, Why Women Aren't Funny. It's a controversial title, but really the point of what his video was, and it's something that I thought before I watched that video, which is that there's social pressure on guys to be funny.
In a world where 50% of the population is female, one man had the audacity to write an article titled, Why Women Aren't Funny. Now, Sarah Silverman, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and writer Alessandra Stanley are striking back in Vanity Fair. Think Christopher Hitchens is worried? Think again.
There is no question that for women the need or ability to be funny is tremendously less than it is among men. Women don't need to be funny. That for most men, if they can't make women laugh, they are out of the evolutionary contest. They are never going to get laid. Most men are fantastically unattractive. What women see in them is mysterious to most men as well as most women. If you can't make them laugh, you don't have a chance.
Like, there's social pressure. Like, being funny is a thing that guys have to do to be successful in life. Like, to be popular with other people, to connect with people.
Extroversion.
Extroversion. And it's something that I remember because as a kid, I could be funny, but it was something that I've learned over time, how to make jokes, how to take jokes, You know, it's a thing that guys do to each other where they rib each other, they insult each other, they see if you can take it.
Yeah, you're a real combat specialist.
Your mom's a combat specialist.
What?
With my.
You know, they see if you can take insults, they see if you can make comebacks. You know, this is part of like this masculine thing where you're tested, your wit is tested, your intelligence is tested.
My manly ways and turn of phrase are sure to thrill her. He thinks he's such a lady killer.
Because for us, for guys, it's not looks like it is for girls. For guys, it's our, you know, whatever's up here. You know, that's how we're judged.
There is some element of looks.
There is, for both genders, yeah. But for guys, there's this huge, like if you can't, like Christopher Hitchens in the video says this, and he says, a guy who can't make a joke is done for. There is nothing, if you can't make people laugh at you, if you can't have a sense of humor, you're going nowhere as a guy.
A guy on a first date he has no actual personality. He's just a mishmash of different kinds of dudes for a couple of seconds each. Just anything. No cohesive, just like a ransom note cut out of a lot of magazines. Just, yeah. Well, yes, I think so too. Whatever.
Yo, Tara, you and me, movies Friday? You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. You want to go for a ride on my moped? Please? Anything would have been better than giving her a stupid glue-covered box and acting like a total goober. Now she'll never go out with me.
It was grade 7. We had a teacher, some music. We had a teacher that wanted us to write 100-word compositions and then read them in front of the class, and I was utterly terrified. But then I wrote something that one of the popular kids thought was funny. And then I've wanted attention ever since.
You know, you won't get women to notice you, you won't get guys to respect you, and there's evidence for this. Like, there's evidence for the fact that certain people who can't live up to these pressures get, like, disorders.
Right.
You know, like with women, if they can't live up to the pressure to look good or be thin, they get eating disorders, right? When with guys, there's sociological evidence for some of this, that guys who can't get people to laugh at their jokes get sociopathic. They get violent. They want to go on. I mean, like a lot of these sort of rampages, like shooting rampages or violent rampages, happen when people are frustrated sexually or frustrated socially. They feel like they have no friends. And there's a relationship here, you know, like between humor and how guys are forced to be funny.
When the child inside a man is injured or dead, that's when they do damage. That's when they're, you know, dangerous to society. But when they're just glowing and creative and, you know, in community, primarily, when they associate in community and they're not, you know, cutting themselves off from other people, I don't feel that there's anything unsafe or unlovable or wrong with any of those people.
So did you have something to add on the?
Yeah, I feel like I could go on like literally all day about this, but I'm trying to think of like how much of it is relevant because we are still trying to talk about ponies and stuff.
Yeah, well, it does relate back to ponies though in a sort of way.
Because for me, I mean, I've said a few times now that like I was, you know, uber rebellious all growing up, so it was really just, for me, it was very my way or the highway, with me being the one on the highway because everyone sent me packing for being, you know, to me. I grew up super out there and super, I mean, I guess gender was a big conflict throughout my whole life just because of the fact that, like I said, I had long hair as a kid and I looked like a girl. Like, if I look at old pictures of me, yeah, I can totally get why everyone said I looked like a girl. People mistook me for a girl all the time. And this is like my whole life. I always had long hair because every time I'd cut it, I'd just let it grow back. And yeah, so like I grew up until I could grow a mustache at like 14. people always mistook me for a girl and made fun of me for the way I looked. And for me, again, it was sort of like reverse. It was reverse pressure, where instead of like me being under pressure to conform, I was under pressure to not conform. I deliberately did not cut my hair until last year. Last February, I think, is when I finally. I had hair that went down to my knees before I
Seriously?
cut it. Yeah.
What?
Say what?
I had the longest hair of anyone in this city, I
That's
swear to God. I've never seen anyone in this city with longer hair than I had.
Get a haircut, hippie!
Did you let it just like hang loose, or did you tie it up or something?
It was often in
Yeah,
in a braid. I'd get my mom to put it in a braid so I could.
That'd be
manage
like
it.
worth $2,000.
Did you sell it? Yeah, did you sell it to a wig company?
Oh, I gave it to Locks of Love.
Okay.
It's a cancer wig making association, basically. But it was like 2 pounds of hair or something like that. Like it's just an enormous mass of hair that they cut off.
You had a mane. You had a mane.
Yeah. But you know, even though when I was in high school and college, I was super rebellious. I mean, if you look at what I'm wearing right now, I'm wearing a shirt that's brown and it says "shirt" on it. I drew this myself, and this is the kind of stuff that I just wear, right? Yeah. Because I always made it a point to be like, I take my comfort and what I care about above what society wants me to do. Yeah. And but there is.
Do you think is that like a guy luxury though, to be that rebellious, like to sort of stick out on your own?
I don't think so, because no one was affording me that luxury.
Can girls do that, Chloe? Can girls like strike off on their own and be like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to be rebellious. Like, I mean, do girls do that?
Of course you can. You're just you're just giving up.
Yeah, you're giving up.
Regarded as a girl, you know.
I mean,
don't.
You're putting yourself out of the race.
Like, yeah, I mean, exactly.
That's what I did.
Then you're not gonna be. You're not gonna be pretty, and you do. That's like the #1 rule. Be pretty. So you can do it.
I think the same is true for guys. I think guys are expected, if you're not making any effort, because no one paid attention to me. Not just like.
But Digi, that's not effort you're not making there. That's just doing your own style. And as a guy, that's okay, as long as you know you're clean and.
But it's
you're basically.
You've got reasons for what you're doing.
But what I'm saying is that it's not okay. Society did not accept me. No one accepted me. People still don't accept me. They still think I'm weird and out there.
Pink! Marge, I can't wear a pink shirt to work. Everybody wears white shirts. I'm not popular enough to be different.
The people that accept me are the people who are part of this culture of doing whatever you want, you know? The friends that I have offline are all similar to me, but at the same time, maybe it is easier to be a guy doing this just because I haven't met any girls who do it to the extent that I do. So I don't know.
So how does Pony relate back to all of what we've been talking about? Well, I mean, it goes to like what we see the main six. It's the main six again. Like if you look at what they are, when Lauren Faust designed them, she said that she wanted them to be icons of girliness. That was the phrase she used. She was like, okay, and so if you look at them, that's kind of what they are. They're like the spectrum of femininity, right? Yeah. Or masculinity, and they all have like. They vary from the girliest characters, who would be like Fluttershy, Rarity, Pinky, and then it goes like in like this gradient towards the more masculine. And I use finger quotes here because these are just terms for convenience. The more masculine characters like Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and Twilight. And you've got that spectrum, and it's presenting that to girls and the audience, and it's a great message just by that fact, because it tells people who are watching this you can be variations on a theme, you know, and that theme is just a person who's just trying to make their way in the world. And you can, not only can you do that, not only can you be who you are, but you can be friends with people who aren't like you.
Yeah.
Right?
Dear Princess Celestia, it's hard to believe that two ponies who seem to have so little in common could ever get along. But I found out that if you embrace each other's differences, you just might be surprised to discover a way to be friends after all.
What is preventing you, right? And that's like the key to why people really like that.
But you do have to do pretty.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
because the ponies are all very pretty.
Well, I don't. I mean,
all doing pretty.
Hey, we may seem different. It's
Applejack doesn't really do pretty. Like she's got an, I think she's got a natural in a human version. She'd have a natural glow.
Yeah, when people humanize the ponies,
her personality, and I think, I mean, even the pony design as it is kind of pretty, but they're not thin.
They're not humans. They're not humans.
Yeah, you can't really.
It's not going to pressure.
Like that.
It's not pressure. That's another reason why I like the fact that they're not humans, because they're ponies. It doesn't bring in that sort of gender, that body image thing that's going to pressure girls.
I remember, not like it was yesterday, like it was decades ago, looking at my Barbie and looking at my mother and looking back at my Barbie, and I'm like, what's wrong with her? Right? That message that came through, and I was 5 or 6. It's a terrible message. It is a terrible message for young ladies.
They're pleasant to look at. They've got nice, cute faces. But I'd rather call them cute than I'd call them pretty. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, Applejack and Rainbow Dash are very good examples of, just do you. And if your personality makes you look good, that's fine. That's cool. That's what it should do.
I mean, there's
you can
parts
also
of
be
the
a very girly girl like Rarity. It's whatever you want to do.
I wake up, I do some quick flybys, shoot some clouds, and let my awesomeness speak for itself.
Brush, 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 darling. 30 strokes per strand of hair makes manes look great without a care. Well, it works for me anyway.
I mean, there's little scenes in the show that show that Rainbow Dash or Applejack, Rainbow Dash does care about her appearance. She does. She may seem like she's all about athletics and stuff like that, but
cool.
And she's like, I've got the same sleek mane. When she's like doing that thing, and I can't remember the episode where she's really full of herself. Mare-do-Well, I think it was.
Same sleek body, same flowing mane, same spectacular hooves.
Where she's like, why do people not like me anymore? I'm still pretty. I still look awesome. I'm still, it shows that she does care about that.
Awesome hairdo. Yeah, the only one who really doesn't care about the way she looks is Applejack, where she's
Pinkie Pie. I think Pinkie Pie too, maybe.
Pinkie Pie doesn't. But Pinkie Pie doesn't care about anything.
Kind of in her own world, like Applejack.
She acts like a pig.
Doesn't give a damn.
Point that Applejack doesn't care what she looks like. I mean, that's basically look before you sleep is basically Applejack being like, she's not really conscious of that kind of stuff at all, because it's to her it's flippant and it doesn't matter, And I mean, that's the point of that episode, is her accepting Rarity for what she does, and Rarity accepting Applejack for being a, I mean,
what they do.
I don't know that they necessarily did an amazing job of emphasizing that point, that it was like, I don't know, maybe they did.
I think they did. I liked that episode. That was one of the better episodes in terms of, like, you can be with someone whose personality seems like you're opposite, and yet still come to a meet in the middle and agree to be friendly to each other, and not to knock what the other person does or how they
take that up and blow it up into the fandom perspective just for a little bit. Like, I think it shows a lot of if you really want to see how bronies who aren't necessarily buying into everything in the show, who don't realize it themselves, go into any place, like go to 4chan.
No!
And just watch the Rarity versus Rainbow Dash arguments, because that's what it's been for the last few days. Is there's been this epic war between Rarity fans and Rainbow Dash fans.
I don't even want to get into the fact that the cults of personality around certain characters.
Right.
Because to me, it's about all of them and the fact that they can all get along.
But the fact that there even is a war about this, where people who strongly dislike Rarity for exactly the reasons you think they probably don't like Rarity, and it's like, this is everything the show is trying to teach you, is that you should accept Rarity for what she is,
Lauren Faust works super hard in order to have a cast of characters that showcase all the best aspects of women in media, and Rarity is an integral part of this. She is a shining example to little girls everywhere that being invested in fashion and self-image doesn't always have to make oneself petty and self-centered. Also, her artistic inclinations and entrepreneurial spirit serve as positive reinforcements for girls, or anyone, to pursue their creative aspirations and to empower themselves.
An amazing video that everyone should watch is Rookie Wampus, who's one of the newer analysis ponies. She did a video on Green Isn't Your Color, where she dissected it and was talking about how in that episode Rarity is super jealous of Fluttershy, but she's never vilified for this. At the end, it's portrayed like she should have been jealous, or it made sense that she was jealous, and no one holds it against her,
In many other TV shows, the lesson might have been be happy for your friends or possibly appreciate what you're given. Instead, while Rarity's envy is not treated as a positive thing, it's not treated as shameful either. In a world where children's TV shows are telling girls that jealousy and envy are things that only bad girls feel, it's nice that Rarity is allowed to be both generous and envious.
And it was like, wow, really? A cartoon did that? They didn't, like, neither of the characters is ever seen as the bad guy. They're both, they both had their issues, and both of them apologize, and they get along. And it's like, why can't the fans appreciate that?
My personal favorite is putting your hoof down when Fluttershy gets the assertiveness training, and then the scene where she tears into Rarity and Pinkie Pie was like almost fourth wall breaking in how devastating her attack on Rarity and Pinkie were. Like when I saw that scene, I was like, "Jeez!" Like Fluttershy when she's like, "You're frivolous. You care about stupid things like fashion," and Pinkie Pie, you like birthday cakes, and you're like a 6-year-old in your head. And I was like, "This is too close to life."
Things getting too complicated for your simple little brain, Pinkie Pie. Now stop right there. Let's not let things descend into petty insults. Why not? I thought petty was what you're all about, Rarity, with your petty concerns about fashion. Hey, leave her alone. Fashion is her passion. Oh, and what are you passionate about? Birthday cake? Party hats? I can't believe that the two most frivolous ponies in Ponyville are trying to tell new Fluttershy how to live her life when they are throwing their own lives away on pointless pursuits that no pony else gives a flying feather about.
Damn! That is exactly the way people tear each other down in real life.
Right.
You know, you catalog someone's flaws, and you catalog the things that you think are weird, and you know that the people are insecure about them, and then you pull it out when you want to get to them. You pull it out. You like this. You're into this. You're stupid. You're frivolous. You're shallow. You're not cool.
And the lesson of the show is always to accept that in other people.
And then she realizes that all she accomplished with that is just making people miserable. And then she realizes that she's a monster, which is the thing that I want, like all the trolls and people who do this stuff. I'm sure they have these moments where they realize I'm not doing anything by cutting people down online, you know.
I gotta say, like,
you want hopes.
Yeah.
Say it again.
He said you want hugs.
No.
No, one hopes.
Oh, yeah, one hopes. I heard you want hugs. Why did I hear that?
You want hugs, man.
It's clearly me subconsciously like projecting on what I want from Anthony. Oh God.
Enough of this gay banter.
On rewatching season 1 recently, I really got that this was the message of the show when I watched Swarm of the Century, which is the one where Pinkie Pie is trying to communicate with everyone and she's failing. And just that the show's the lesson of that episode was not Pinkie should learn to communicate better. It was her friends need to learn to listen better.
I've learned that sometimes the solution to your problems can come from where you least expect it. It's a good idea to stop and listen to your friends' opinions and perspectives.
That was the lesson. And that was where it really hit me like, man, that's great. It's not saying like, oh, you communicate poorly, you should learn to be like everyone else. It was like no, the rest of the herd should learn
It's like lesson 0. It was lesson 0. The lesson wasn't you shouldn't get nervous about things you have to get done. It was that your friends should respect the fact that you are worried about stuff in your life and that anxiety is something everyone faces.
Come on, girls. There's no reasoning with that one. She's a few apples short of a bushel.
The worst thing to call somebody is crazy is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. That's bull. These people are not crazy. They're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
I had a little personal anecdote about Rainbow Dash that, you know, that scene in I think it was a Cutie Mark Chronicles, the one where that shows how they all get their cutie marks, and it shows that Rainbow Dash was getting challenged by guys, like she was defending Fluttershy's honor. That scene where the guys are like, you can't. They challenge her to a race and they basically treat her like she can't win because she's a girl, essentially.
You're going down.
In history, maybe. See you boys at the finish line.
When I was a kid, I did that. Like I was that guy Like, I remember a scene when I was like a little kid in elementary school where there was this girl who was like, everyone was saying was a really fast runner, and I was like, nah, I could still beat her. I'm a guy. She can't beat me. And I remember challenging her to a race, and I was like, well, I bet I could beat you. And she had a friend there who was like, no, she's gonna kick your butt. She's really good. You don't know what you're talking about. And unlike the character in the show, I'm proud of this at least, I backed down. I took it out. I was like, wait, I think I'm being a douche here. I think maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe that being a girl doesn't mean they're going to be unathletic. And indeed, this girl would, like, in high school go on to, like, win every track meet. I mean, she was like Rainbow Dash in real life.
So almost. You would have got dominated, basically.
Yeah, I would have got dominated, I'm sure. And I'm not an athletic guy. But it was just like the guy in me. There was like a social pressure. Like, I had bought the Kool-Aid, and I was like, I'm a guy. I can't.
It's like such a classic girl power thing, too. Like, it's always that, Yeah.
But I've had sexism.
I had a similar story, but it was a fight that we were supposed to do, like wrestling, and I don't know. I think, in fact, it was me who challenged the guy, and everyone was like, "Nah, she can't, go with it." I'm like, "Dude, I'm right, I can." Totally whooped his ass.
You did?
It was awesome.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
I did.
That's classic.
You go, girl. You go, girl.
Pixar didn't happen. No, seriously, I would want to see video of that. How old were you? Were like elementary school or something?
Yeah. I must have been about 9, I think.
Pigeon.
So I mean, there is something true to life about this. I mean, I've had sexism even older. Like, I've had, like, because I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer all my life, and I always think, it's like, no girl is gonna beat me in a first-person shooter, right?
Oh Lord.
Okay, I mean, it's just like, and it's more coming from the fact that girls don't play video games more than I think I'm superior to girls necessarily.
Right. But of course it's not true.
Yeah, it's not true, because eventually I do meet that girl. Like, once I did while I was playing Counter-Strike one day. I met a girl who was actually like on par with me and was giving me a real hard time, and so I was like, I'm gonna have to revise my attitude.
Realize that I'm a sexist bastard.
Yeah, and I've had other, and one of the best StarCraft 2 professional players in North America right now is a girl.
Hi, I'm GXX Shock, and we're at Gamescom 2013. I'm reporting for In StarCraft, and with me is Team Aces Scarlet. How are you doing, and how have you been enjoying Gamescom so far?
It's fun. There's a lot of people here. The crowd is actually really nice. A lot of people said online that it's not a very good crowd, but I think they're just not picking it up well on the microphone. It's really, really loud.
Talking about the crowd, I mean, you were just smashing it yesterday, and people were cheering for you. I don't know if you caught the vibes inside of the booth, but it was just amazing. Were you surprised by that kind of support?
There aren't a lot of girls who play StarCraft, but
I mean, when it comes to gaming, that's like the biggest social thing is, like guys versus like all the guys on games who give girls crap and are like, oh, you can't win because you're a girl, and it's if you follow any feminist gaming things, that's constantly brought up. And of course, I follow plenty, so
yeah,
I've seen it a lot.
Yeah,
as a thing that people are rebelling against, where girls are saying, we pretty much dominate, so.
Yeah, and even in Team Fortress 2. I think it's an interesting game because I've often commented that Team Fortress 2 is almost like a yin-yang with Pony, and I think there's no accident that Pony became so popular on Team Fortress 2.
Heavy, how do I make sandwich? All you have to do is take a cup of flour and a 2 minutes. Now just take a little something sweet, not sour, and beat up all just in pinch. Making these treats much in cinch and teaspoon of belonging. And a little bud, you come too far, and you never get your chili sandwich. So moist and delicious sandwich. I'm coming for your sandwich. Sandwich, sandwich, sandwich.
This did not just happen.
Because Team Fortress 2 is like the yang to MLP's yin. It's a cast of all male characters.
Right.
It's like nine characters who are all men, and they're all like male stereotypes.
Right.
And it's over the top sexist. There's like this sort of that's played for laughs. Because it's set in like the 1960s, and all the characters insult each other by calling each other women and girls.
Once upon a time, in the magical land of Equestria, there were 2 regal sisters who ruled together.
there's this really cool little subtext of that poking fun at the sexism, and I don't think it's an accident because there are more girls who play Team Fortress 2, I think, than any other shooter I've ever seen.
On my map, to keep with the pony theme, we turn the doors into present boxes so that it looks like one of Pinkie Pie's parties.
There are a lot of girls who play Team Fortress 2. Have you ever seen that, Anthony? I mean,
the characters you're saying call each other female?
You may be Australian, but you're not even half the man I am.
Yeah, when they insult each other, they call each other like little girls.
Good Lord, you fight like a woman. That's all right, pretty bra washer you built, you big ugly girl. Go home, lassie. Men are fighting here. Oh, you're a wee little miss, you are. Ha! You fight like a girl.
I'd have to say that, as a person, I've always been in favor of gender equality. You know, like I've always been someone who wants to see.
Oh, you've always been a decent person? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
No, I mean, even from a young age, despite those instances I mentioned, I've always felt that I wished that girls were equal to men, and that we could get past this inferiority superiority thing, and we could get past this. And you know, when I see a character like Rainbow Dash, I sometimes remember wishing that when I was a kid, I wish there were more Rainbow Dashes. Actually, like when I would look at girls, I'd be like, I wish more girls were, you know, assertive and like competitive and wanted to like
so awesome
and wanted like joked around, and you could talk with them about stuff that you were interested in. So it's like this ultimate irony where both genders are like separating each other, and the consequences, they actually end up being unable to relate to each other because of these outdated gender roles that get enforced, and it actually makes communication between the two genders really hard.
Yeah.
And then along comes Pony, and it becomes this place where both genders can actually go there and meet from this place of like affection, and not have all that crap pop up, right? Anyone else want to chime in about what they think about how like Pony sort of brings people together around instead of dividing people along these lines?
Beautiful. I mean, ideally it does that. Obviously, there's an extent to which there's going to be fans who don't buy into the messages, who don't, you know, follow along with that. But that's why there's enough of us who are promoting it, who are saying, hey guys, look at this is what the show's really telling you, and also be a decent person. And you know, like I guess it's an outlet for socially conscious people to really promote, where it's the kind of show that's going to attract people like us who are like all about gender equality, and we can look at this show and go, ooh, this is doing it pretty close to right, and we're getting all these, you know, we get more people who are interested in stuff like this, and we can talk to them and spread the message and get it out there, I guess. So yeah.
I was gonna bring up it's kind of an unfortunate thing, but I think it's interesting. It's the only hate mail that I ever got, and it was from
the first of many.
A guy telling me how dared I. It was to my reply to Digi, and it was saying, you know, you girls had My Little Pony back in the days, and now that finally like the guys are here and are enjoying this show, of course you want to invade this now as well. You want to take this away from us. You don't have a place here. This is like a guy's thing now. And I was like, how did this happen? That there's a girls show that became a guys show.
Do you really think this was not a troll? Do you really think this wasn't a troll? I mean, like that almost.
It very possibly could have not been a troll. It's very
I can see that.
This was a comment on my video, and then it was a personal message, and obviously, it was actually a PM.
Well, block him, man.
Female.
I need to
get back in the kitchen.
I need to find this because it's like, I'll find this, guys, because it's amazing. Like.
Yeah, you find that and read it to us.
Well, we can. Yeah, I mean,
not mention names, but
it's about bullying. You know, that's just another bullying thing to me. That's just the same thing as people saying like you're breaking the rules and you need to stay on your side of the fence. That's just another variation on that, as far as I'm concerned. It's the same old chauvinism. And
what's making me sad is that guy is doing that in defense of me. Is what's really making me sad.
Not really. He's not defending any Bam. He's
Well,
not
he's
defending anything.
literally, because her video that is literally, it was a rebuttal to mine. So he's like saying, she's doing a rebuttal to Digibrony. She can't just accept that you know that.
You think it's like
likes
one
the
of your
show or whatever.
fanboys? It's a fanboy of yours.
Right.
Who's
I
like,
promoted her rebuttal. I promoted it. I personally said, "Hey guys, if you like Ghostbusters, she did a great video about like the good things about it. I don't like it, but you know, here's the other opinion that I actually thought was helpful."
Yeah, and your opinion, I mean, Chloe, your opinions about the lack of sexualization and romance in the show. I mean, we didn't. I mean, revisiting that, it's one of the reasons I like that personally is because I always feel like sex is shoved in your face too much, like in media, in film, especially now. I feel, and it's just kind of this thing where,
literally. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, no, not that. It's just like just media that's supposedly mainstream.
Right.
You know, you're always given, even in mainstream movies, you're always given something that's meant to titillate you, and I get really tired of that. You know, and anime is another thing too. Like there's a big subset of anime that's got you know what fan service is, Digi, right? You know what fan service is, and you know that's the thing about
Been in this
anime.
fandom for a long time.
Fan service. It's anime fan service. Is just it's titillation. It's sexual stuff that's thrown in there, apparently to appeal to men. And as a man, I'm like, well, step off. You know, I don't need you putting that in my face.
I
Like,
get where you're coming from, but I am a big defender of fan service, but
it irritates me, and it just gets to the point where I'm like, that's one of the reasons I like Pony, because I'm like, it doesn't do that because it's a kid's show.
No! No! No!
I mean, my stance on it is actually similar to my stance on having girls shows, which is that it's because, you know, a lot of people have said, coming back to that thing where I was mentioning that some people are bothered by the lack of men in My Little Pony, and the defense that happens is people say not every show needs to have guys in it, just like not every show needs to have girls in it. As long as the only problem is that there's an underrepresentation of shows that are about girls. There's a ton of shows about guys. Why can't we have the one show that's about girls? And anime with fan service, that's how I feel about that as well, is that I love fan service shows, but there's just not enough of them that are for girls. It's like all represented of guys shows, but that's totally changing now, as I mentioned earlier, with way more girl-centric fan service shows coming out. It's really starting to become a lot more even split, so everyone's getting their fan service.
I understand where you're coming on the equality thing, but actually mine is just, we're going to differ on this because I just don't like having that stuff shoved in my face as much. You know, I think that romance can be approached tastefully, and the thing I like about Chloe's video is that she points out that, you know, sex is part of life, but it's just a part of life, right?
Yeah.
It's not everything. You know, not everyone has to be beautiful and sexy, and not everyone has to be falling in love with everyone else, and that doesn't have to be a concern all the time. It doesn't have to be a major plot concern.
You shouldn't feel like your life is empty without that. In fact, your life is full of a lot of other things. That's one of the reasons why romance isn't a part of it, because there's just so many other things in there. And that
most of my life
doesn't
is not
degrade
that.
it.
Most of my life has not been about
None of
romance.
my life is that at all.
All right, I mean, this gets into another thing that people criticize about the show, right? This is another thing that people like to attack bronies as like permavirgins. Okay, I'm gonna raise this because I think it's interesting, because it's another one of those societal pressures that to lose your virginity, that stuff like this is important.
Here lies Scout. He ran fast and died a virgin.
You know, it's one of those things about society that I'm really tired of now, because I think it's outdated and it needs to go, which is this idea that your validation as a human being revolves around virginity and stuff like that. And it does matter. It matters to people.
Separately, we are flawed and vulnerable, but together we are the masters of our sexual destiny.
Their tiger-style kung fu is strong, but our dragon style will defeat it.
Guys!
The Shaolin masters from East and West must unite. Fight, and find out who is number one.
Guys, come on, you're ruining my moment here. I mean, this is our very manhood at stake.
Really? No, not really. I can't back that up.
one of my favorite responses to comments like that, because I get plenty on my channel where it's either calling me gay or a faggot or calling me autistic or calling me autistic is a huge
That's
one,
the new
especially on
right.
4chan right now.
Since this is a brony we're talking about, I'm going to assume that he is disgustingly fat, unwashed, has a hideous neckbeard, and a severe case of autism.
It's like the big thing to call people. And I get why. If you want, I can get into that a little bit.
Because retard has been sanitized. Retard
Well,
is
not just that, but because there are a lot of autistic bronies. There are a lot of them. But there's a good reason for that, because it's been proven that autistic people will respond better to cartoons because it's easier to understand emotions, and I get that. But my response to anyone who calls me gay or calls me autistic or calls me a virgin is I say, okay, how is that an insult? You know, are you saying, like, because I know autistic people who are cool, I know gay people who are cool, I know, you know, I know virgins, I know all three of those kinds of people, and I have no problems with them. So when people call me that, I'm like, that's not an insult.
They're just saying you suck, and that they're better than you. That's all they're trying to say. That's what insults are for.
But they're failing because those things don't suck. Those aren't negative to me. You know, the thing I think society needs to do is, or bronies especially, bronies complain that they all get called gay or they all get called autistic, and I say, rather than complain about being called that, just say who cares, because those people are fine. There's nothing wrong with being gay. There's nothing wrong with being autistic. You're making it an insult by getting offended.
What we are going through are the growing pains of society becoming more equal, and we are part of the solution. So whenever I am told that I'm a gay, faggot, homosexual who likes pink ponies, I laugh, because the insult itself has lost meaning to me. In fact, I take pride in being a vessel for social change.
And that's what offends me, is taking it as an insult.
Partially.
I'm not autistic. I don't think it's.
I agree in that to a large extent, but I also think there's something that says that you know, we shouldn't just sort of roll over and accept the fact that people just want to be bullies all the time. Like, I mean, there's a certain sense that you don't want to be like enabling it, like by saying, I'll never say that it's okay. You know, I'll always say, yeah, sure, don't feed the trolls, don't respond, don't get into big flame wars, but also don't accept it. Don't say that it's natural or normal, like that people that act like this. You know, it's not okay. Let's be clear about that. And it's okay to be clear about that.
Like all of you, I was shocked and saddened by the deaths of several young people who were bullied and taunted for being gay, and who ultimately took their own lives. As a parent of 2 daughters, it breaks my heart. It's something that just shouldn't happen in this country. And we've got to dispel this myth that bullying is just a normal rite of passage, that it's some inevitable part of growing up. It's not.
And you know, I had similar to your story about autism. You know, it's one of my favorite movies is I Am Sam, starring Sean Penn. I don't know if any of you have seen it.
Starring Starbucks.
Yes, because he works at Starbucks in the movie. It's a cool movie, but it's got a Beatles soundtrack. It's one of the reasons that the movie's popular. It's got a Beatles soundtrack. All the songs are Beatles songs, and you learn in watching like special features that apparently like mentally retarded people. The movie is about a mentally retarded person. Mentally retarded people really like. Sean Penn like won an Oscar for it. Mentally retarded people really respond to Beatles music. You know, because apparently it's really like emotions are really accessible and they can really easily understand it. And you know what? Great. Does that mean that I can't like Beatles songs?
Right.
Like, is that your reasoning? Because allow me to laugh in your face if that's what you're saying. That Beatles music is for mentally retarded people.
Yeah. Even if it is for mentally retarded people, what do I care? I don't care if you call me mentally retarded. It's not an insult, you know.
Well, I think we've really hit a lot of great topics in this discussion. I think we're close to wrapping it up. Does anyone have anything to add at all? Anthony, did you have anything to?
Kids, don't do drugs.
Kids, say no to drugs.
I gotta go to the bathroom real bad. That's all I've gotta add.
Hurry it up in there!
There's an old quote by Walt Disney that kind of sums up the pony thing for me. That, you know, why does everyone like it, including guys? And it's like, this is his saying, over at our place, we're sure of just one thing. Everybody in the world was once a child, So when planning a new picture, we don't think of grown-ups and we don't think of children, but we just of that fine, clean, unspoiled spot deep down in every one of us that maybe the world has made us forget. That explained his whole ethos.
Another good one by C.S. Lewis is that quote where he was like, something about how as adults we should be mature enough to not be worried about whether or not we seem like adults.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
That's obviously not the direct quote, but I don't remember it verbatim.
But yeah, I mean, those are great points, and I think all these things, all these sort of what MLP has done and what people like those people have done is sort of point us towards a world where we're no longer divided by these walls. It should never be young versus old, man versus woman, nerd versus some normal person out there. You know, everyone has all these things in common, and these shouldn't be things that divide us. They're there. Differences are there, but they don't have to divide us. And My Little Pony
differences.
Yeah, and My Little Pony and the Friendship is Magic and the fandom itself, to me, has been this great nexus where people from all walks of life come to this place and they all sort of connect through it in this place of just general affection. And isn't this great?
It fuels me in a positive way, and I love how Brony is anything from 0 to 100 and beyond. Boys, girls, men, women. And I just think it's a really amazing... You guys are really great. Yeah, you're really great.
You're all right.
So I think that's really, really encouraging, and one of the reasons I like the fandom and the show.
Yeah.
So thank you guys all for joining us. This has been another episode of The Elements of Brony. In the next episode, episode 4, we'll be talking a little bit more about this universality and how the show appeals to a broad audience through some of its visuals and other content. But thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Great.
Get out!
There has been, and continues to be, a lot of scorn and ridicule of bronies in our culture. The brony fandom has its fair share of detractors, and many of the most intolerant opinions of the fandom originate from the very geek culture that bronies are a part of. In his famous 1963 letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated the following:
"Seldom do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all the criticisms that cross my desk, my secretaries would have little time for anything other than such correspondence in the course of the day, and I would have no time for constructive work."
It would be futile and impractical for the fans of Friendship is Magic to defend our love of the show from every criticism. But I think it's worth my time and yours to address one particular criticism out of the multitude that can often be heard coming from many bronies themselves. That, while it's okay for us to like the show, it's only okay to like it in a certain amount, and beyond that, it makes us a weird cult that deserves the ridicule it receives.
On the one hand, if you like a show and you want to tell people about it, I get it. But the minute you turn it into some kind of cult, that upsets me a lot, because I feel that it's completely skewed whatever the original intent was, which was, as far as I can tell, to make a decent show that didn't make a big deal out of gender stereotypes, etc. And I just feel like this actually makes it 100% worse as a result.
Before I continue, I'd just like to clarify that I understand perfectly why so many bronies would applaud a statement like this. Few people are comfortable being thought of as weird. Most people want to fit in.
Fit in? Really?
In order to get along with others, we all sometimes have to compromise a little bit. But when does that compromise become too expensive?
I think the reality is a lot of times they might not be that popular at school, or they might not have that many friends.
I get that. Look, I was the biggest loser in school. But I mean, you pick something that is more socially acceptable, not isolated, because you're going to get judged even more so.
Nah.
If we have to hide or minimize the importance of something we sincerely love and connect with, simply to avoid, quote, a problem with others, well, what exactly is that problem? And more to the point, whose problem is it? I'm a person who believes that any problem has a solution, and the best solution to any problem usually isn't simply to try and avoid it. As some of the following footage should remind us, sometimes we can't avoid the problem. And what problem is that? Unfairness. Because of inaccurate cultural stereotypes, people everywhere of all ages are still being treated unfairly.
It's become anything but friendship for 9-year-old Grayson Bruce.
They're taking it a little too far with, punching me and pushing me down, calling me horrible names, stuff that really shouldn't happen.
Grayson picked this backpack.
This is Rainbow Dash.
Which he says has intensified the attacks against him. He understands why some kids call him names.
Most of the characters in the show are girls.
Noreen Bruce says Thursday the school asked him to leave the pack at home because it had become a distraction and was a trigger for bullying.
Saying a lunchbox is a trigger for bullying, you might as well say a short skirt is a trigger for rape. It's flawed logic. It doesn't even make any sense.
To overcome unfair stereotypes, we have to be honest. Honest with other people, but most importantly, we have to be honest with ourselves. We can all be guilty of jumping to unfair and uninformed conclusions about others.
I came about it in the same way that probably most of the general population came about it. There are a bunch of 20-year-old guys who are watching a show made for 8-year-old girls. Well, they're gay.
The pervert alarm for sure went off in my head when I first heard about it.
These vampire bats are nothing but a bunch of monsters.
Monsters? Oh, that's a bit harsh, don't you think?
Like I revealed during the discussion in this episode, I certainly don't have a perfect record when it comes to not treating people unfairly based on stereotypes. Now I'd like to be honest about one more thing that I'm not proud to admit. This video was the first I saw of bronies in the flesh, and my initial reaction was pretty much along the same lines as this comment. But like John Delancey, whose initial ambivalence towards bronies turned into admiration so strong he was inspired to make an entire documentary. And like Ashley Ball, whose initial suspicion of bronies has given way to respect.
I love bronies, and you guys are changing the way I look at adult males who view cartoons.
And who to this day still makes appearances at brony conventions. And, like the character she voices, Applejack, the avatar of honesty in the show, I too overcame my initial prejudice. Why? Because I don't see myself as the kind of person who makes comments like this. I see myself as the kind of person who makes comments like this. Choosing to be a person who defends others instead of attacking them has made all the difference in my life. Treating people fairly has made all the difference. I went to law school out of a desire to fight for fairness. But you don't need to be a lawyer to understand or fight for fairness. Even the littlest children can do both just fine.
Girls want superheroes, and the boys want superheroes. The companies who make these try to trick the girls into buying the pink stuff instead of stuff that boys want to buy, right? Yeah, so then why do all the girls have to buy princesses? Some girls like superheroes, some girls like princesses. Some boy likes superheroes, some boy like princesses.
Absolutely,
So then, why does all the girls have to buy pink stuff and all the boys have to buy different color stuff?
I think that has to do with the way that Hasbro is marketing their products. If you look in the commercials, it's always girls cooking with their mothers. I've never, in this particular product anyway, the Easy Bake Ultimate Oven, which is supposedly like their best product yet, there's never a boy, and it's all coming in that one color, well, those two colors, pink and purple, which society has made out to be a girly color.
It's the middle of what in America is known as March Madness. An entire month where the entire country, from the president on down, is consumed by an obsession with a game whose object is to put a rubber ball through a metal hoop. There are plenty of sports fans who take their love of the game to a level that would put the most diehard brony to shame. For millions around the globe, sports are both a way of life and, for all intents and purposes, a religion as well. But how often do you think any sports fans feel the need to warn each other to tone it down, for fear of offending someone like me, who doesn't really share their passion?
Cheryl, don't you want to play with Nikki?
I hate playing with dolls. I'm not playing, I'm accessorized.
And how practical would it be for me to get annoyed every time I met someone who was really into sports?
Cheryl. He's so good, he's got all American written all over him. And Gary Bertier? I do not care.
Because let me tell you, that would mean I'd be getting annoyed at a lot of people, including some of my own family. There's a term for this kind of unfairness. It's called a double standard. Where there is bigotry, there is usually hypocrisy too. Many sports fans in America are currently wrestling with double standards right now, as both professional basketball and professional football recently welcomed the first openly gay players to their ranks. In a video that quickly went viral, sportscaster Dale Hansen brilliantly summed up what these double standards are, why they're unfair, and how they can be overcome.
Michael Sam would be the first openly gay player in the NFL, says he knows there will be problems and they've already started. Several NFL officials telling Sports Illustrated it will hurt him on draft day because a gay player wouldn't be welcome in an NFL locker room. It would be uncomfortable because that's a man's world. You beat a woman and drag her down a flight of stairs, pulling her hair out by the roots, you're the fourth guy taken in the NFL draft. You kill people while driving drunk, that guy's welcome. Players caught in hotel rooms with illegal drugs and prostitutes, we know they're welcome. Players accused of rape and pay the woman to go away. You lie to police trying to cover up a murder, we're comfortable with that. You love another man, well now you've gone too far.
One other problem I have with a comment like this is the idea that as long as we don't like the show too much, then other people probably won't, quote, give you crap. That's a nice theory, but I think it underestimates the true nature of the forces some of us are up against. Be warned, you may find the following clip difficult to listen to.
Now, one of the problems is this creeping into our theology, into our thinking, into our worldview. So your little son starts to act a little girlish when he's 4 years old, and instead of squashing that like a cockroach and saying, man up, son, get that dress off you and get outside and dig a ditch, because that's what boys do. You get out the camera and you start taking pictures of Johnny acting like a female, and then you upload it to YouTube and everybody laughs about it, and next thing you know, this dude, this kid is acting out childhood fantasies that should have been squashed. Can I make it any clearer? Dads, the second you see your son dropping the limp wrist, you walk over there and crack that wrist. Man up. Give him a good punch. Okay? You're not going to act like that. You were made by God to be a male, and you're going to be a male. And when your daughter starts acting too butch, you rein her in. And you say, oh no, sweetheart. You can play sports. Play them to the glory of God. But sometimes you're going to act like a girl and walk like a girl and talk like a girl and smell like a girl. And that means you're going to be beautiful, you're going to be attractive, you're going to dress yourself up.
To those who say that My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic is just a TV show, and that liking it is nothing to make a big deal about, I'd like to pose this question. Will an 11-year-old boy get bullied and harassed to the point where he hangs himself from his bunk bed because he liked just any TV show?
An 11-year-old boy is in critical condition in a Wake County hospital after he tried to commit suicide, and the boy's father says his son was being bullied at school. John Camp live now at WakeMed with the details for us. John.
Steve, we are just back from visiting this 11-year-old boy here at the pediatric unit at WakeMed, Michael Moronis. He has a tube down his throat. He'll have a tracheotomy tomorrow, or at least he's set for that. He is unresponsive, and his parents think he very well could suffer brain damage for the rest of his life. Why? All because he likes a TV show that some see as geared toward girls.
He'd come home and say, you know, Mom,
I'm tired of people being mean to me. I'm tired of people calling me gay. I'm tired of people telling me I'm ugly, that I'm stupid.
Imagine hearing that from your 11-year-old son. Tiffany Moronis Suttle says her boy, Michael, complained about it often. She says usually he'd let it roll off his back until 10 days ago, when she found him hanging from his bunk bed.
It was like, whoa, where the heck did this come from? Where?
The answer? Apparently from the bullying he'd been complaining about, which Michael's parents say was rooted in his love for the TV show My Little Pony, a show with a surprising fan base, men and boys known as bronies.
It teaches the most basic of moral values to a lot of complex thoughts. Like
Michael's stepfather says the show preaches a message of friendship and tolerance, something the 11-year-old apparently wasn't getting at school.
It breaks my heart that people have no sense of community, have no sense of respect or boundaries, that people use things like a show, or they use things like sexual orientation. That's a personal preference. It's like, you know, religion and faith. It's your preference. And as long as you're not doing anything harmful with it, why do you have to mess with it?
As long as we live in a world where a little boy is bullied to the point of attempting suicide for liking a harmless TV show, and as long as we live in a world where a little girl can be shot in the head for daring to want an education, I'll always support people like the Bronies who are inspired to create a world where we are judged not for the content of our favorite shows, but of our characters, regardless of whether that inspiration comes from MLK or MLP. This concludes the first half of the Elements of Brony. The final half will be devoted to the final objection I have to this kind of comment, that it's somehow wrong to see this show as more than just a show. One of the major reasons I was inspired to make this project from the very beginning was because I felt many bronies were too quick to dismiss the idea that it's possible to find something deeply meaningful in a show about talking cartoon horses. I'm of the opinion that if people can make a way of life out of throwing balls around, it's certainly possible to find something in a show about friendship and love that's worth believing in, and even living by. If that interests you even slightly, then you won't want to miss the next episodes of The Elements of Brony.